sure by now you all have heard about 5G at least once. But is it just about the higher speeds than your existing 4G networks? Or is it just for individuals like you and me? The answer is definitely not. As opposed to the previous trends, we'll be witnessing 5G changing how the industries operate today. And today I'll be talking about the innovation opportunities for telcos into one of the most promising verticals. Now let's see why this particular before we understand why this particular vertical is so important, let's take a look at how the top 100 ports of the world are spread across various continents. So, on number one position, we have China with 34% ports, followed by Asia with 26% ports. Then we have Americas and Europe, followed by Middle East, and then we have Africa and Australia with a 2% share. Now let's understand why this particular industry is so important and why it needs automation enabled by 5G networks. Next. So seaborne trade, it contributes 5 to 10% to the world's GDP. So you can imagine that it is very important from the global economic perspective. Secondly, 90% of what you buy, it comes to you by sea route trade. The livelihood of people is very much dependent on this. But it is not just these two facts, but it is the tangible challenges that ports today are facing and uh, which tells us that we really need automation in this particular industry. High labor cost, is a very, very serious issue over here. The insurance cost of the people working at the seaports is very high since they're working in very harsh climatic conditions, which adds up to the total labor cost, and it is as high as 50 to 75% of the operating cost. Of course, the volume of trade are increasing. Then we have limitations of fixed networks due to which we need 5G. And lastly, there are time constraints for the ship. There is a lot of ship traffic leading to congestion at the seaport site. Now, let's understand what makes 5G so unique and how it is beating the traditional networks, that is, your Wi Fi and fixed network. So, 5G is a wireless technology and it offers high mobility, high coverage, ultra low latency, very high uplink bandwidth, and very high security, which makes it an ideal network for B2B solutions like ports. Next. Now let's make it a bit interesting and understand how 5G is transforming the lives of people working here. And I have taken an example of the seaport crane operators. So, just to give you a context of what these crane operators do, they are responsible for loading and unloading of the containers. So, on this image, which is there on the screen, you can see that the person is sitting in a cabinet. And let me tell you that he's sitting at a height of approximately 30 meters. And this is the minimum height. It goes up to as high as 60 to 70 meters. So this is the case of traditional port, right, where there is no automation. Now let's see what has happened, how the lives have now transformed in case of automated port. This person who was sitting in the cabinet at such a huge height is now comfortably operating the crane while sitting in a very conducive environment. And he can remotely and manually operate this crane. So, this is the power of technology, and we can say that this is the power of 5G. Next, operational efficiencies. So, one of the challenges with ports is that the operational efficiencies over the years have been continuously declining. So, what has happened now? In case of traditional port, the crane driver, which I just showed you in the last slide, he was able to handle only one crane. But now, in case of the automated port, he's able to handle from 3 to 6 cranes. Next. Now you all must be wondering that where is 5G in all of this? What is the role of 5G, right? Again, I have taken the example of the same crane. In this crane, there are multiple cameras which are deployed. So these cameras, they are sending the multiple video feeds to the guy you saw who was sitting in that remote control room and manually operating the cranes. Now, what happens is, as there are multiple cameras, they will be generating a lot of heavy data traffic. And there arises the need of 5G network because the existing networks are not capable of providing such an higher uplink bandwidth. So, now to understand it a bit more, there is a crane on one side, and there is a person sitting in the remote location on the other side. And there is a communication taking place between both of them using a private 5G network. So there are, of course, high speeds there, which are enabling all of these communication. But along with that, we also have the advantage of edge computing, which leads to low latencies. Moving on, let's understand how a port of future would look like. So, firstly, there will be internal digitalization. As I showed you, that there will be remote control cranes. Apart from that, we'll also have automated guided vehicles. Then, next level of this would be that all of the operations that are automated, they would be controlled from one single terminal. There will be a centralized terminal for controlling all of these activities. The third would be global supply chain integration. So, this level is as advanced as the ports would be able to collaborate with each other. Next, now let's understand that how are the opportunities segregated between 3 periods. Let's keep it very simple and not get into too much technicalities. Now, I have divided these into 3 periods on the basis of the implementation feasibility. The short term opportunities obviously have a very high implementation feasibility, and these are the use cases which we are seeing today successfully being implemented in different parts of the world by different operators, integrators, and vendors. Next is midterm and long term. Obviously, these are the 2 periods where use cases today have a very low implementation feasibility, but in future we might see them as being successfully implemented. Next, now how much is the opportunity for telcos in this whole game of 5G imports? They say that private 5G networks is a US dollar 18 billion opportunity by 2030. And about one third of it will be into logistics, transport, or the seaports or the airports. And we have estimated that about US dollar 4 billion will be there in ports by 2030. Next. So now let's understand a very important thing, that how telcos can monetize this opportunity. So number one, they definitely cannot avoid partnerships. They have to come together with the integrators, vendors, or the port authorities itself. Number two, identify the use case. As I have discussed in my previous slides, that there are many use cases, right? The short term, mid term, long term. But within the short term, they have to identify that which use case they are ready for. They have to question the readiness of their network and the readiness of their capabilities. Third, understand the expectations of various port stakeholders. Understand what is their expectation in terms of outcome as a result of automation. Number four, readiness of the CSP business model. It is very, very important to monetize this opportunity. The traditional business support systems will no longer support the B2B solutions. Thus, there is a need to revamp their business support systems. So that's it from my side. Thank you. And if you want to gain more insights on innovation opportunities with 5G imports, we do have a very detailed report on that. You can scan this QR code and you can also subscribe to twimbit.com for more insights in telecoms and, of course, 5G. Thank you.